Concealed in the shadows, I watched my mother-in-law walk into the restaurant, her hand entwined with that of her husband's fiercest rival. Before I could slip away unnoticed, my unfaithful wife joined them, accompanied by another man. Then, as if to add salt to the wound, he raised his glass and declared, "The presidential suite is ready for all four of us tonight." I couldn't hold back any longer. I immediately called my father-in-law, Peter, and delivered the crushing news. "Your wife and daughter are betraying you with your worst enemy right now." His silence was thunderous, filled with pure rage. The plans for revenge began to take shape, cold and merciless. I never expected to find myself in that restaurant, tucked behind a potted plant in the far corner, nursing a cup of coffee I hadn't even wanted. But there I was, blending into the darkness, the evening unfolding in ways I could never have predicted. What was meant to be a quiet dinner alone, after a canceled meeting, had turned into a nightmare. It all started innocently enough. I thought I'd use the extra time to relax and reflect. But then I saw her, my mother-in-law, Carolina, walking in with none other than Victor Novak, my father-in-law's most ruthless business adversary. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a simple meeting. It was a closeness I couldn't ignore. They were holding hands, exchanging intimate looks. The betrayal was palpable. I considered leaving, letting the Novak family drama unfold without me. But before I could make my exit, my wife, Ivana, entered not alone, but with another man, someone I didn't recognize. My breath caught. She sat down with her mother and Victor. The three of them laughed and toasted like this was all part of the plan. Then, to make matters worse, Victor raised his glass and said, "The presidential suite is ready for all four of us tonight." That was the breaking point. I dialed Peter, the man who had welcomed me into his family, the one who had built an empire and treated me like his own son. His voice was steady when he answered, but when I delivered the devastating news, it shattered. "Your wife and daughter are betraying you with your worst enemy right now," I told him. There was a long pause. His voice turned cold as ice. "Where are you?" he asked. I gave him the address. The events that followed would haunt us all forever. From the outside, the Novak family appeared to have everything. Peter Novak was a titan in the world of finance, his name synonymous with power and success throughout Europe. His wife, Carolina, the perfect society matron, had stood by his side for 3 decades. Then there was Ivana, my wife, graced with her mother's beauty and her father's ambition. She was making waves in luxury hospitality, destined for even greater things. I entered this world 6 years ago, swept away by Ivana's charm and the promise of a bright future. We led a life many could only dream of, jet-setting around the globe, attending galas, dining in Michelin-starred restaurants. But as I look back, I see the cracks that were always there, hidden beneath the perfect exterior. Ivana's love had grown colder over time. What had once been affection was now replaced with sharp words and an increasing distance between us. At first, I chalked it up to her demanding career, or maybe the pressures of being married to someone as busy as I was. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. The first warning sign came 3 months ago when Ivana began taking mysterious business trips. They always seemed to coincide with weekends when I was free. When I suggested tagging along, she brushed it off with a laugh. "These meetings are boring, darling. You'd hate them." Then there was her phone. Once, she had left it lying around unlocked, but now it was protected by a passcode I didn't know. She even took it into the bathroom with her, something she had never done before. When I asked, she gave me a vague response. "Work confidentiality. You know how it is." But the biggest alarm came 2 weeks ago when I discovered an unfamiliar credit card in our drawer. While searching for a receipt in her purse, I stumbled across a collection of charges, expensive dinners, jewelry, hotels, and cities I had never been to. When I confronted her about it, Ivana dismissed it casually, claiming it was for her clients, part of her work. I wanted to trust her, but an uncomfortable knot in my stomach told me something was off. Then at the restaurant, Everything fell into place. The business trips, the locked phone, the mysterious charges. It all made sense now. And to make matters worse, her mother, Carolina, was right there, fully complicit in this betrayal. The man who had given them everything was the last to know. I stayed in the shadows, watching them celebrate their treachery, each laugh a painful reminder of my own ignorance. Instead of rushing in to confront them, I took a smarter approach. I called Peter. He arrived 20 minutes later, his face frozen in a mask of anger. He wasn't alone. Two of his most trusted associates came with him, their expressions grim. From across the room, I nodded to him, signaling that I would let him take charge. Peter approached the table with silent authority, his presence casting a heavy shadow over the group. Carolina's laughter stopped instantly when she saw him. Ivana froze, panic flashing across her face. "Well," Peter said, his voice icy calm, "I hope you're all having a good time." Victor was the first to regain his composure, smirking as he leaned back in his chair. "Peter, didn't expect to see you here." "I'm sure you didn't," Peter replied, his tone sharp as a knife. "It looks like you've been having quite the time entertaining my wife and daughter." Carolina stammered. "Peter, it's not what you think." "Save it," he interrupted. "I'm not interested in your lies." Ivana stood up, but one of Peter's associates moved in swiftly, blocking her path. "Sit down," he ordered. The entire restaurant had fallen silent, all eyes on the scene unfolding before them. Peter turned to Victor, his gaze burning with fury. "You think you can humiliate me, tear apart my family, destroy everything I built?" Victor chuckled nervously, trying to brush it off. "It's just business, Peter. Don't take it personally." Peter slammed his fist onto the table, making the dishes rattle. "You made it personal the moment you involved my wife and daughter." Peter wasn't a man to do things halfway, and this wasn't just about pride. This was about everything he had worked for over the past 3 decades. That night, after the confrontation at the restaurant, he didn't rest. His mind churned with a plan that would leave nothing but destruction in its wake. His goal wasn't just to punish Victor, Carolina, and Ivana. It was to ensure they felt the consequences of their betrayal in every area of their lives. The first target was Victor. He had been Peter's business rival for years, constantly undercutting him, poaching clients, and spreading malicious rumors to undermine his company. Victor's affair with Carolina wasn't just personal. It was a calculated move to destabilize Peter both emotionally and professionally. "I'll ruin him," Peter said, his voice steady with determination as he spoke to his trusted advisors. "And I'll make sure he knows exactly who did it." Step 1 was a silent strike. Peter gathered concrete evidence of Victor's illegal business practices, offshore accounts, unpaid taxes, and bribes to key officials. These weren't just rumors. They were cold, hard facts accumulated over years of competition. With the evidence in hand, Peter tipped off the regulators, sending them storming into Victor's offices with search warrants. Within 48 hours, Victor's company was at the center of a scandal. Headlines screamed, "Real estate mogul Victor Novak under investigation for fraud." But Peter wasn't finished. He reached out to Victor's biggest investors, using his connections to warn them of the imminent fallout. Fearful of losing their investments, they began to withdraw, causing Victor's liquidity to collapse. His empire, once towering and invincible, was now crumbling, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Carolina faced a reckoning unlike any she had imagined. Peter had been a devoted husband for 3 decades, always treating her with respect and providing her with a life of luxury. But even his loyalty had its breaking point. Without hesitation, Peter filed for divorce, citing infidelity and naming Victor as the cause. This wasn't just about ending their marriage. It was about leaving Carolina with nothing. Their prenuptial agreement contained a clause that denied her alimony in the event of adultery, and Peter made sure his legal team exploited that provision to its fullest extent. Carolina's reputation as a well-respected socialite quickly unraveled. Peter discreetly alerted her inner circle, ensuring her closest friends knew the truth about her betrayal. Invitations to exclusive events stopped arriving. Her social circle began to shrink, and whispers followed her everywhere she went. The woman who had once thrived in the spotlight of high society now found herself isolated and ignored. Ivana, my wife, was not exempt from the fallout. Her betrayal cut deepest, because it wasn't just a betrayal of our marriage. It was a betrayal of the trust we had built and the future we had envisioned together. After the confrontation at the restaurant, I went home, packed my belongings, and left her a letter on the kitchen counter. Ivana, you've made your choices, and now I am making mine. You betrayed me, and there's no going back from that. I'm filing for divorce, and you won't see another cent from me. You've lost my love and the life we built together. I hope it was worth it. Lucas, I made sure the divorce filings included clear evidence of her affair, ensuring she wouldn't walk away with any of our shared assets. Her affair partner, a man who had promised her excitement and passion, deserted her as soon as the scandal went public. She was left to face the consequences alone. As the dust settled, Peter and I began to rebuild our lives, but in ways we had never imagined. Victor's company didn't survive the onslaught. His investors pulled out, his clients fled, and the government froze his assets amid a fraud investigation. Within 3 months, he was forced to declare bankruptcy. The man who had once been Peter's most dangerous rival was now nothing more than a shadow of his former self. I later heard through mutual contacts that Victor had relocated to a small town in southern France, far from the bustling city where his name had once been synonymous with power. He was now utterly disgraced, his fall serving as a stark reminder to others in the industry. Cross Peter Novak, and you will pay the price. Carolina's life spiraled into a series of public humiliations. Peter sold the family estate, the one she had decorated with her personal touch for years, and bought himself a sleek penthouse overlooking Prague. Stripped of her wealth and social standing, Carolina moved into a modest apartment. A far cry from the luxurious life she had once known. Her days were now consumed by regret and isolation, her once vibrant life reduced to quiet loneliness. I happened to cross paths with her months after the divorce was finalized. She looked different, older, her once pristine appearance now shadowed by a tired sadness. She tried to speak to me, but I simply turned and walked away. There was nothing more to say. Ivana's situation was no better. The divorce left her financially ruined. Without my support, she struggled to keep up the lavish lifestyle she had grown accustomed to. She bounced from low-paying jobs to working in luxury hospitality, her once promising career now a trail of missed chances and burned bridges. She attempted to reach out multiple times, through emails, calls, and even showing up at my office. But I made it clear, our story was over. The betrayal had closed that chapter for good, and I had no intention of revisiting it. As for Peter and me, our connection deepened through the whole ordeal. We became unexpected allies, leaning on each other as we both rebuilt our lives. Peter's company thrived, stronger than ever with Victor out of the picture, while I found new purpose and satisfaction in my own work. One evening, Peter and I sat on the balcony of his penthouse, sipping whiskey as the city lights flickered below. "It's funny," he said, staring out into the distance. "I thought losing them would break me, but now I see they were the ones holding me back." I nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. Sometimes, you have to lose what you thought was essential to realize what you're truly capable of. We clinked our glasses and sat in quiet reflection, two men who had weathered betrayal and emerged stronger. Betrayal hurts, but it doesn't have to define you. Sometimes, it's the very thing that clears away what no longer serves you, making room for a brighter future. And the most powerful form of revenge? It's not in bringing others down, but in thriving despite them. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to Lauren's Story. Many of you who enjoy these stories aren't subscribed yet. By subscribing, you're not just following a channel. You're becoming part of a community that treasures meaningful storytelling. Let's continue to explore these heartfelt journeys together. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss our next story.